All right, let's dive into a really crucial piece of the UK building regulations puzzle, Approved Document D. It's all about toxic substances, and honestly, understanding this is absolutely essential for keeping our buildings safe and healthy. So, let's say you're planning to add some cavity wall insulation. It's a fantastic idea, right? Make your home warmer, save on energy bills. But have you ever stopped to think about the potential health risks that could be hiding inside those insulation materials? Let's take a closer look at that. But before we get into all the details about toxic substances, we need to lay some groundwork. You hear this term approved documents all the time, but what are they really? Let's get clear on their role in the whole system. Think of it like this. The building regulations themselves are the law. They state what you must achieve. The approved documents, on the other hand, are like the official instruction manual. They give you practical, step-by-step guidance on how you can meet those legal requirements in most day-to-day building situations. They're the government's pre-approved roadmap to getting it right. Now, this is a really important distinction to get your head around. The guidance in an approved document isn't technically the law itself. You could use a different method to comply. But, and it's a big but, if you follow the guidance exactly as it's laid out, you are legally presumed to have complied with the regulations. So for most people, it's just the safest, most straightforward route to take. Okay, so with that background, let's get to the real heart of Document D. Why does cavity wall insulation need its own specific guidance on toxic substances? Well, it all comes down to a very specific and kind of hidden danger. The main villain here is something called formaldehyde fumes. You see certain types of insulation, specifically urea formaldehyde foams or UF foams, can release these fumes over time. The real danger is that these invisible fumes can actually seep through the inner wall and build up inside your living room, your bedroom, the places you live and breathe. If they reach what's called an irritant concentration, they can seriously harm your health. And this really brings us back to the fundamental purpose of all the building regulations. It's not just about paperwork or ticking boxes. At the end of the day, it's all about one core mission: making sure our buildings are safe and healthy places for people to be. So we've clearly defined the problem: toxic fumes getting into our homes from insulation. Naturally, the regulations provide a direct solution. And this is all laid out in what's known as Requirement D1. The regulation itself says, reasonable precautions shall be taken to prevent the subsequent permeation of any toxic fumes into any part of the building occupied by people. Now, pay close attention to that wording. It doesn't outright ban the material. Instead, it puts the responsibility squarely on the builder to make absolutely sure those fumes stay sealed away from where people live. Okay, so that's the what. But what do reasonable precautions actually mean when you're on site with your tools? How do you actually comply with this? Well, thankfully, the approved document gives us a very clear, very technical blueprint to follow. This is the practical solution right here. To use UF foam and comply, there's a 5-step checklist. First, the inner wall must be masonry, like bricks or blocks, to act as a solid barrier. Second, the wall has to be professionally assessed to make sure it's suitable. Third, your installer has to be properly certified. Fourth, the foam material itself has to meet a specific British standard for safety. And finally, step 5, the installation process has to follow a very strict code of practice. It's a really comprehensive, layered approach to safety. And all those numbers you see on the screen, the BS this and BS that, those are the key British standards that make this whole process work. Just think of them as the super detailed rulebooks for the steps we just talked about. They specify exactly how to assess the wall, the quality the foam needs to be, and the precise method for installing it. It ensures everything is done by the book. Okay, great. We've worked through the problem and the specific solution in Document D. But before we wrap this up, there are just a couple of final, really crucial points to remember about how all of this fits into the bigger picture. Now, this is a big one. Remember, following the guidance in Approved Document D gets you a tick in the box for that specific requirement on toxic substances. But it is just one piece of the puzzle. Your project still has to comply with all the other relevant regulations, things covering structure, fire safety, materials, workmanship, the whole shebang. And one last thing, let's just circle back to a point we made at the start. While following the guidance we've talked about is the most common and direct path, it's not the only path. If you have a different material or an innovative method that you can prove stops toxic fumes just as well, you're allowed to use it. The system is built to allow for innovation, just as long as safety is never, ever compromised.
And that is our quick tour of Approved Document D, a small but vital regulation for keeping our homes healthy. For more guides just like this one, be sure to visit the Building Regulations Copilot YouTube channel. And if you have any specific questions about your own project, head over to buildingregulationscopilot.com.
Thanks for watching.